From the trails to the road to the track, if it's running, you'll find it right here on Trail Tales ARP. Run wild.
Hey everybody, welcome to Trail Tales ARP, a running podcast video edition. I don't always put all my podcasts up here on YouTube, but this one I definitely needed to do. We're going back a couple weeks with our guest, Gene Balfour, and Gene was a runner, marathoner, and he transitioned into Nordic skiing and then into something called Nordic cross skating, which we talk about. And there's some great visuals in our conversation with Gene where he shows us what the Nordic cross skates look like. So I had to put this one up on YouTube. Alex Maycock joins us into the conversation as well. And we talk all about Nordic cross skating. We talk about running, marathon running. We talk about a little bit of sports physiology, which is really interesting. Gene's got a good background in that. So enjoy the show, everybody, and we'll catch you on the flip side. Run wild. Hello, everybody in podcast land. Welcome to Trail Tales ARP, a running podcast. Once again, I'm your host, Sean Sobon. And today joining me from Fenland Falls is Mr. Gene Balfour. Gene has been running since 1975. He has competed in 18 marathons, with his first one, like I had mentioned, in 1975 and last one in 2017. Also his first as a Nordic cross skater, which we're going to get into in the show. And Gene has also run in Boston and New York, amongst many others. And Gene's personal best for his marathon happened in 1980 at 2 hours, 54 minutes and 33 seconds. And Gene is also part owner of Hardwood Ski and Bike in Barrie, Ontario. Gene, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for being here.
It's my pleasure, Sean. It's going to be lots of fun talking about this stuff.
Yeah, I've really enjoyed the conversations we've had up until this point. And, we've kind of touched on all the different things you've done. But why don't we start from the beginning here? We'll get into your running and then how things kind of transition into your new love now with the Nordic cross skating. And as you've told me, there's a bunch of differences between Nordic cross skating and roller skiing, which we'll get into. But yeah, take me back to 1975 or even prior to that. With your origins in running, how did that begin for you?
Well, I went to University of Waterloo from 1970 to 1975 in the co-op program. And that was a kinesiology program. So it's a Bachelor of Applied Science in kinesiology, which is really the study of human performance. During that time, I was a teaching assistant on the faculty on a couple of work terms. And during that period, I started getting close to some of the professors who were doing research. And they were doing research in exercise physiology, particularly for running because they were marathon runners. I also played on the varsity rugby team. And because I was in pretty good shape, these guys said to me, "Hey, look, Gene, you look like you're in good shape. See if you can run to the Breslau with us." And the Breslau was a place 5 miles away where you drank beer.
Okay.
So I said, well, if beer is there, I think I can make it,
Motivation is key.
There you go. So I went out with these guys and they were like, 20 years older than I was. And they didn't struggle at all. It was an easy run for them. But me, felt like I was dying after 5 miles, but I did it. And I got a taste at that point. So when I graduated a couple of months after that one run, I was at the Fitness Institute in Toronto. I was one of the instructors in the Fitness Institute. So when I went back full time there after I'd worked on 2 work terms, I said to one of the guys, I said, "Hey, I'm going to run a marathon in the fall. It's going to be the Kitchener-Waterloo Marathon, the Oktoberfest Marathon. Would you like to run it with me?" And he said yes. So the next thing I knew, he and I were out training regularly. And then I got another guy and another guy and another guy. And then before I knew it, I had 6 guys. And I was teaching exercise physiology to these runners at the time because I had a lot of knowledge in it. Mm-hmm. And I used to love that stuff. So I used to share it with people. So we ran the first marathon together, Rick and I. Rick is now, by the way, he's the one of the counselors for the city of Oshawa. So he's in the political world today, but he was a professor at Seneca College for 33 years, I think it was. Okay. So he's a real athlete too. But anyhow, that's how I got into it. It was really more because of my academic interest in exercise physiology and my exposure to some professors that were running marathons. And I figured I got to do it. The other thing is at that time, there was a famous author by the name of James Fix. And James Fix had written the book on running at the time. And he made some kind of a claim that said something like, if a person runs a marathon, they never have to worry about having a heart attack for the rest of their lives. So we all thought that we were running so we'd be able to live until we were 100,
Yeah.
But of course, years later, you find that that's not the case, right? But anyhow, that was one of the things that got me going. And so that's how I started. I ended up in cross-country ski racing a couple of years after that, when the owner of the Fitness Institute, Bill Gardner, he was a cross-country ski racer and a former, he was in the Olympic team for Canada in Japan in 1964 in track and field. So he was a hell of an athlete. And he one day talked me into buying some skis. And the next thing I knew, I was cross-country ski racing. I wasn't very good, but I was having fun. Anyhow, for the next 5 years, my group and we continue to run marathons. And as I said, I got into 18 marathons, of which I completed 13 because I used some of them for training runs. And I also did a lot of road races, or 10 and 15 and 20 kilometer road races. So I did a fair bit of running back in those days.
Okay.
That's how it started.
Awesome. So I'm, a very seasoned running history there for you. What was your first marathon like? You definitely had the background in the exercise physiology. So did you design your own training plan, or did you, use the wisdom of some of the seasoned runners you knew? How did you figure that out for your first one?
Well, I learned early about LSD running, long, slow distance running, and I knew enough about exercise physiology to know that to build an aerobic base, it takes a long time. It's not something like you go out for 3 months and you've got a good aerobic base. It really takes years to build it properly. And so my running for virtually all of my marathons was basically just long, slow distance running with my friends. And as long as we could run and talk at the same time, we were running at a good pace. Years later, I don't know if you know who Phil Maffetone is. Have
yes,
you heard
I
of
do.
Phil?
Yes.
Okay, so a few years back, I bought Phil Maffetone's big book. He's a PhD in exercise physiology and probably one of the more notorious, I guess, long distance coaches. And so I read his book, and it was an update to the stuff that I'd learned way back in 74, 75. And it was good. But I learned about his heart rate method, where you take a target of 180 minus your age, and that would be the point at which there would be you would begin to transition from aerobic training where you're burning fats over to anaerobic where you're burning carbohydrates. Mm-hmm. And so I've been, ever since the time I got his book, I continue to stay in LSD kind of running quite religiously on my, on making sure that I train in the right heart rate range. Although I do like some fartlek training where I occasionally feel good one day and I'll go off and go at a race pace for a while and just have some fun. But a lot of the time it's LSD running.
Yeah, I think, there's a lot, obviously there's science behind that and everything. And, right. It sounds like you're paying attention to the heart rate now, but I think, after some time you can get a good feel as to where you are in that zone. And like you had mentioned, if you can keep it at a conversational pace, you're probably in that area where you want to be. And I think, adding some stuff in like fartlek or, speed play or intervals occasionally as well, it's a good way to balance it. If they've talked about like the 80-20 method where 80% is the LSD and then you do 20% of your volume at a higher intensity. It's interesting.
I had never broken 3 hours until the very last marathon in Detroit.
Yeah.
And in Detroit, I decided I would change everything. And so I did my LSD for months. And then I spent the last 2 months still doing long distance on a weekend, but I would do Tuesdays and Thursdays would be at the track doing 440s and 880s at race pace. And that's how I went from my previous best at 3 hours and 3 minutes down to 2:54, because that addition of teaching my body to run efficiently at race pace made a huge difference in terms of my efficiency. And that's how I knocked off about almost 10 minutes.
Oh, wow. Amazing. So it just goes to show you, kind of do some specific training and you'll get some better results. But I think, with that type of high intensity training as well, I mean, it leaves you susceptible to increased chance of injury and stuff like that. So you really got to be careful with it. It's funny too, because I'm working towards my Bachelor of Health Sciences, but I've got a science background as well. I'm a paramedic. I've been one for 18 years. So, I really enjoy like pharmacology and physiology and stuff like that. And I like to try to take what I've learned and kind of apply it into my running, because it's just really fun, right? So so recently I did an article on some studies that they've shown with the high intensity interval training, where within a fraction of the time you can kind of get the same physiological benefits as the longer LSD type type training plan. So I kind of wanted to test that theory out on myself. And then I figured I'd up the ante and I'd add creatine into the mix because, that's been shown to help with kind of explosive power and stuff like that. So I did that. I spent some time at the track. This was back in November. So there was some snow and some conditions beyond my control, but I did some treadmill runs as well. But anyways, I ended up doing this it was a 5-week kind of plan that I did. I did three sessions at the track per week where I did 400-meter intervals and 200-meter intervals, 3 each per session, one with creatine, one without. Anyways, I ended up, they have all these smart watches now that can do your predictive VO2 max and stuff. So I had a big jump in my VO2 max and maximize it to where it's never been before. And then I did 5K time trial at the end of each session to see where I was at. And I almost hit my PB for my 5K. I was off by maybe 30 seconds or so, but my PB was on a very flat course. This had a bit of incline and had some weather to deal with. But anyways, it was a really fun experiment. And I did feel my fitness increase and everything. And it was just exciting to kind of do that. Just something fun to do for 5 weeks to carry me through the first part of the winter anyhow.
Oh yeah, that sounds great.
Yeah.
I know for me, the aerobic training, the aerobic cross skating, I should say, I started that almost 9 years ago. And every year I've gotten better. So I'm 69 years old now. And I kept thinking that I wouldn't get faster and better and more efficient at this age, but I did. So last year I had a breakthrough year because I usually go out for 20 to 25 kilometers at a time.
Okay.
And very often my average pace would be, 420 to 430 per kilometer. My wife rides her bike with me, so I'd be doing a pace, just comfortable pace for her on her bike. But last year, in the middle of the season, I started going under 4 minutes per kilometer for 25 kilometers. Wow. And I was moving along. I mean, I really flying, and my heart rate would be, 110, 115 at that pace.
Okay.
And I know. And so I was thinking, it really finally got to the point where all this aerobic long distance training I've been doing on Nordic cross skates, every year I see an incremental improvement. 3 or 4 years ago, my average would have been maybe 445 per kilometer. When I started out, it would have been probably 550 a kilometer, but it's been coming down every year. I'll be interested to see what happens this year to see if it goes down beyond that.
Absolutely. That's why I love talking to guys like Eugene, because, where you're at now in your life, I hope to be able to be there when I get to be 69 years old, right? Like that's kind of the goal for me. And it's just great to hear that, you're still getting better. That's phenomenal.
I know. I was freaking out over it.
No kidding.
Yeah, no telling my wife and just going nuts about it. It was good.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So, I want to get back to running just a little bit now. Yeah. So you've run in Boston. Yep. What was that experience like? Did you run it one time? Have you run it more than once? And what was qualifying like for you? What was that about? Because that's one of the premier marathons that somebody can run in, right?
Right. Well, I ran that in 1978.
Okay.
All right. So at that time, you didn't have to qualify for it.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Well, I could just apply to go. And I know afterwards you had to have, I think it was a 3-hour marathon at that point. I probably would not have qualified because my best was 3:03 to that point. So I ran, I was running with a guy named Dave Cole. Do you remember the Cole's bookstores?
Yes.
Many years ago? Well, David's father started and ran Cole's bookstores. So he was one of my running. He was the director of marketing for Cole's bookstores. But anyhow, Dave, when I first met him, he was a member of the Fitness Institute. He was a heavy smoker, 3 decks a day. He was 220 pounds and 5'9", and he was in terrible shape. He'd just come off a heart attack at the age of 28. And so he came in as a member, and over time he started doing some running, and then eventually started getting friendly with us, and then eventually he decided to run in our group. So I paced Dave Cole at Boston to his first marathon. So when I ran that, I was running along at a fairly slow pace. I wasn't going hard. But when I hit 20 miles, I said, Dave, you're on your own. I'm going to finish this thing off. So I finished it in 3:06. And which, for the fact that I wasn't really trying for a best time, but I finished strong, really strong. Yeah. And then when I finished, I was engaged to be married to my first wife at that point. And she'd come in from New York City, which is where she was working. And she came to see me run over the finish line. And then she had to run for her bus, and the bus was taken off. So after the marathon was over, I sprinted down the road and chased the bus, got him to stop so my wife could get on the bus at that time. And she thought I was crazy because I just finished running 26 miles and here I am sprinting down after a bus, you know.
You still had some gas in the tank, eh?
Yeah, but when you're 27, 28 years of age, I mean, you can go forever. You can do crazy things and get away with it, you know.
Yeah,
it's a lot harder to do it at my age.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm even noticing it. Like I had mentioned to you earlier, I'm going to be 40 this year, but I'm already noticing. I think when I was about 37, 38, I started noticing some pains, especially some stiffnesses in the morning and stuff. So I had to get moving around before you start to feel limber again. So it's just kind of age catching up, I guess. But I had a guest on the show.
Well,
Go ahead.
No, I'm just going to say that all of us end up getting osteoarthritis to some extent over a period of time.
Yeah,
all of us.
Absolutely.
So the more you can do to prepare your joints before you go out for a run, stretching is good, but even putting in extra heat on your joints, especially your knees and ankles and stuff, and it helps. You want to get the joints lubricated, and heat helps that before you get started. And if I was going to tell anybody, any young person about running, I would make sure that they understood that, because otherwise they will pay the price down the road if they don't do that. I guarantee it.
Yeah. And that's really good advice, because when I do talk to people a lot of times, there seems to be some confusion, I guess, as to, should I be using heat? Should I be using ice and things like that? Usually it's in regards to an injury or whatever, but no, you bring up a very good point where pre-exercise, if you apply some heat to the joints and stuff, that'll definitely increase the blood flow there and kind of get things ready for movement for sure. Well,
it could be either heat or ice. It doesn't matter. Yeah. But heat, I think, is generally more convenient, But ice, things like biofreeze, biofreeze can help. But I like a heating pad myself, just to put it on for a little while. Before I go out for Nordic skate, I would often use a thumper and thump my joints to make sure they're all ready to go. So it makes a difference.
Yeah. So you have
yeah. Go ahead.
I was gonna say, it sounds like you have a pretty good ritual before you actually head out to get your activity in.
Yeah, I do most of the time. Do it occasionally. My wife rides her bicycle with me when I'm Nordic skating, and she's just as excited about our activity. We call it Skike and Bike, because Skike is the brand I started with.
Okay.
And so she sometimes wants to rush me out the door. So sometimes I don't always get the warm up I want, but I start slow.
Yeah, absolutely.
And even in my marathons, I start slow. I never start fast. I let all the rabbits go, and I let them run down the road. And then what I do is I pick them off one by one through the middle of the race. And psychologically, that's really good.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's such a hard strategy to employ, because I think you have all that nervous energy at the start line. And when I talk to a lot of other runners, they say I always have this problem because I start off too fast, and then I gotta take off the gas pedal. But if you can commit yourself to kind of starting off slow, and then, like you said, let everybody kind of burn themselves out a little bit, and then you can start picking them off and gaining speed. What a great strategy. But I think it's definitely easier said than done, just because of all those race day jitters and nervous energy, eh?
Yeah, I know. But it's exciting. I mean, I had pretty good discipline after a while. After going out too fast a few times, I figured it out. I mean, I hit the wall a few times, and I hit the wall on the days when I went out too fast. And hitting the wall is not a pleasant experience. I mean, if you've ever done it, it's really not pleasant. So
yeah, no, I have it. It's a lot of suffering.
It is. But you learn from it. You say, I'm not going to do this again. So, but once you're warmed up, once you get in the zone, once your body's floating along and in a comfortable routine, and from your body's telling you whether you're comfortable or not, whether you can sustain it or not. Yeah, and I was competitive, so every once in a while I'd surge a little bit, and I'd have to catch myself because I wanted to catch that next guy. So, but I had to realize that I needed to be patient. He might have been 100 yards down the road from me, but if it takes me 2 kilometers to get him, so what? I'll get him, and that's the way I looked at it.
Yeah. Let me ask you: Have you ever had somebody in your sights and you were just feeling like you weren't going to catch them?
Oh yeah, all the time. There's a lot of runners better than me, believe me. If I finished in the top 20%, I considered myself good that day. I was not a competitive marathon runner. I was participating in marathoning and trying to look for my own personal best.
Yeah.
But I wasn't really trying to measure myself much against anybody else, except for one of the guys in my group. Then we had a competitive edge against each other. So
there you go. And that you bring up a couple great points. I think one of the beautiful things about running is especially for non-elite athletes, you know, you can have ranges in ability, but at the end of the day, you really are competing against yourself and against your personal best and your training and stuff.
Yeah.
But you know, you also bring up your second great point is if you can find somebody where you kind of like to compete with, you can, it's almost like iron sharpens iron, and you guys build off each other, right? And you improve each other. And I have a friend like that as well, who I do martial arts with and stuff. And when we're there together, we just kind of pick it up an extra level, and we both perform better because of it. So yeah. It's really important. It's a great thing to have.
But it's also good for camaraderie, you know.
Oh,
you throw a little threat out at him, you know, and he chuckles, you know. Yeah, sure, Balfour, you know.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's good stuff. So Gene, let's get into your transition here into the Nordic cross skating. So you said it's been about 9 years since you've been into it.
Yeah. It came about because I bought into hardwood skiing bike 12 years ago. Okay. And I was, you know, cross-country skiing had become my favorite sport. I just loved being out in the trails stuff. And so when I heard the business was for sale and I knew there was a bunch of guys getting together, I bought into it. And when I did that, I got, you know, a little bit more insight in terms of the operation of the place. And I get to know some of the athletes, you know, other people that I didn't get to know when I was just a casual, you know, customer. Mm-hmm. 1 year, I guess nearly 10 years ago now, the Masters racing team, and I wasn't on that, but I've heard the stories. The Masters racing team went to Italy and they raced up in the Alps. And during the day, they'd go down to the ocean front where they had a pension and there was no snow down there. And they'd see these German guys whipping around on something they'd never seen before. It looked like skis, but it was wheels on skis. And they learned out fairly quickly that these were things were called skikes. And so they bought 3 pairs of skikes and brought them back to Canada. And because I was an owner, I got a chance to get my hands on a pair. I had bought a pair of roller skis before that, and I didn't like them because I was living in Thornhill, and there was a lot of traffic. The roads weren't ideal. I couldn't brake when there was traffic around, so I found it dangerous. I just you know, I was never motivated to go out and use them.
Right.
But anyhow, I got a pair of these Nordic skates, and I went and used them and started going all over the place. And I realized that this was really what I wanted to do. So I bought my own pair. I imported them from Germany because you couldn't buy them in Canada at the time. And so I got started on that. And then, you know, my first year, I just did, I think it was 600 kilometers. The next year was 1,600 kilometers. And the year after that, it was 2,000. And I kept doing 2,000 every year up until last year. So I've been doing it a lot. And it's just become, I'm passionate about it. I just love the sport. It's now by far my number one sport, my favorite of all time. Part of the reason why I picked it and why I got into it is well, 2 things. One is I've always liked the convenience of running. You know, you got a pair of running shoes and shorts and you can go wherever you want to go. So that was great. But you couldn't do that cross-country skiing. But with Nordic cross skating, I can go into my garage, I can put my tunes on my head, I can throw on my gear, and I can go down my driveway and disappear for an hour and a half and come back again, having done 20 to 25K, and then hit the showers. So the convenience factor really made a huge difference, but also the joy of getting out 9 months of the year. In fact, Cynthia and I got out for our first Nordic skate, bike and skike, about a week ago now. So we've already been out once this year, and we're just waiting for the roads to clear a little bit more, and then we'll be back into our routine again. And that'll go to December, you know, December 1st. Typically, I go all the way till then.
Yeah, so you have a pretty long season. And before we carry on into this conversation, I've got Alex Maycock. So he's coming in at the right time. So nice. Alex is my fellow co-host with Coach Talk. And he's also, like I said, a cross-country skier, quite competitive. There's Alex there. Hey, Alex, how are you?
Good. My apologies. Practice went later than I intended. Sorry.
No, that's okay. Alex, please meet Mr. Gene Balfour. Gene, this is Alex Maycock.
Hi, Alex. How you doing?
Great. Thanks. Nice to meet you.
So Alex, we were just talking about Gene's running, and, you know, he's run 18 marathons and completed 13 of them because he used some for training purposes. And we just were talking about how Gene got into Nordic cross skating, and he was, you know, a cross country skier and really fell in love with it. And then he just gave us the quick story as to how he got involved in the Nordic cross skates. And the origins were in Italy, where they saw these. It was the Germans, right, that were doing this.
Yeah, it was the Germans. Yeah.
and they brought back these cross skates, and Gene kind of got introduced into them. And Gene was telling me a little bit about the differences between roller skis and cross skates. I don't know if you've seen these,
Alex.
Alex.
You see this, Alex?
Yeah, that's cool. I've never seen those.
Right. So these are roller skis on steroids. Okay, so this here is an 8-inch. You can see it's a mountain bike tire. Okay, it's air filled to 50 psi, 8 inches diameter. That's my brake, and the brakes are fabulous. They'll stop you on the dime, and they're on both feet. You put on a pair of running shoes, so no bindings, nothing, just on a pair of running shoes. And the cross-country ski poles that you use right now for training, you take off the tips, you put on ferrules. So you want these are carbide tips, and the carbide tips will bite into the asphalt for you. And just like cross-country skiing or skate skiing, 70% of the power comes from your upper body. So this is a step and a glide as opposed to a push like in hockey or in anything else. So very, very, very much like skate skiing. Very much like it. The difference for me is that the purchase of the wheels on the asphalt is far more reliable than the purchase of a ski on snow. And so when you get out and do this, you find that after a while you get comfortable with it. You find that it's your step and glide is so predictable. You do it without thinking after a while. You mindlessly ski just like you would do on a nice flat day on a flat ski on the snow, you know?
So this is preparing you for on snow skate skiing.
Well, that's
just
the way
not through roller skis.
Well, that's the way it started. Right?
Okay.
But what I did is once I started getting into Nordic cross skating, I would much prefer to spend a day on Nordic cross skates than I would on snow skis.
Okay.
It's a better sport for me.
Okay. And so the skates you need ice for the Nordic cross skate?
No, I do this. I start. In fact, I did my first skate last week. So as long as the roads are dry, and as long as it's plus 2 degrees Celsius or above, and I go usually from about April the 1st all the way to December the 1st. So my season is nearly 9 months long.
Right.
That's why I've been doing 2,000 kilometers a year in training. I have 14,000 kilometers in the last 8 years. So if you're looking to build an aerobic base for skate skiing for the wintertime, this will offer you far more flexibility than you would have in anything else, including roller skis. Now, what I should say is I did one marathon on my Nordic cross skates in Duluth, Minnesota, 3 years ago. All right. So down there, there's something called the North Shore Marathon. You can look it up. You'll find it. I think they're in their 25th season now. And the North Shore Marathon, there's 2 parts to it. There's an inline skating marathon. And the year I was there was 1,800 inline skaters who were doing their marathon, a full 42 kilometers. And then there was a smaller roller ski division. So these were winter skiers like you who had roller skis. And so there was 60 of us, roughly 60 of us. And I was the only one on Nordic cross skates, and I had to talk my way into it because when I called the organizer of the event up, and I said I've been wanting to get into, I want to complete a marathon on these Nordic cross skates, and the running races won't let me in. I've tried a bunch, and they all told me I couldn't do it. It was too dangerous. They said they never saw me ski, but anyhow. So anyhow, I talked him into it. And he said, "Okay, let's do this. Try it." So I showed up and I did the full marathon. And I think at the starting line, when everybody saw me on these big clunky skis, they looked at me as if, you really think you're going to finish a marathon in that, And when I came in over the finish line at 2 hours and 45 minutes, they were shocked. They were really shocked. I got people were cheering.
Nice.
It was hilarious.
How did you finish in the race? What was the winning time?
Well,
how did you place?
The roller skis are a lot faster. So Nordic cross skates are designed to simulate the same speed as cross-country skiing on snow skis. Whereas inline, I found roller skis were designed to go faster. So I was the second oldest guy in the event of 60 guys. And I was not last, but I was fairly close to last. I think the winning time would have been about an hour faster than mine. But I didn't do it for speed. I didn't do it to win anything. I did it because I wanted to do a marathon on Nordic cross skates. And it was fun.
Nice. Cool.
Yeah. I'd do it again too if I could, but we'll see.
Yeah, Gene, let me ask you with the wheels there, like you said, they're very akin to mountain bike tires. are you able to get different type of tread patterns on them, or is it just one typical tread pattern there where you got those knobs on there?
I've seen 3 so far. You have in Germany, just so you know, Nordic cross skating is big in Germany. So if you were in Germany right now and you want to go buy a pair of Nordic cross skates, you would have something like 350 retail stores selling these things. 350.
Oh, wow.
Okay, it's big. Here in North America or here in Canada, I only know of a single person who sells them, and he's a friend of mine, Phil Shaw in Montreal, and he does it out of his basement. You know, he gets a big supply, he advertises, and he sells right across. You know, so there's a very small market here because no one's promoted it.
Yeah.
But I've looked on the internet because every one of these, there's 5 different brands of Nordic cross skates. They're all made in Germany, every one of them. I've seen 3 different types of wheels. So there is a wheel that would be more of a road wheel where there's less of the knobbiness to it. And there's another wheel that I have. I have 5 pairs of Nordic skates downstairs. So one of them I use this time of the year when it's colder and when it's a little rougher and it's got more nubs on them. So I use that for probably a couple of months until it gets to be about 10 degrees. That's consistently. Then I move over to my SRB brand, which is my preferred brand.
Okay.
Yeah, I still have my original Skikes, but I don't think I've been on them in about 3 years.
Okay. Has the technology changed much over the years with the roller skates?
When I first started, the only size of tire was 1 inch wide and 6 inches in diameter. So there was a lighter, a smaller wheel, lighter frame. But I moved from the city because I used to use Skikes all the time. Skikes were the ones that I used with the smaller tires. But I lived in the city, and back then that size of tire and their brakes were suitable for that area just because of what I was doing. But when I came to the country and the roads were rougher here, I think they use a more grainy asphalt here. So the roads are rougher and the wheels don't run as smoothly. So when I moved over I bought a pair of Nordic Scouts, which was the first pair I saw on the market that had the bigger wheels. And I bought them from Germany. And I tried them out on the bumpy roads and the rail trails around here, and it worked out great. So I've been on the big wheels ever since, and that's been 4 years now.
That's one of the really appealing things about the sport, I think, is the ability to kind of go on different terrains. You're not limited to just being on the asphalt, like getting out into a rail trail or something, or a nice hiking path that's not a single track, but something that's a little bit wider, like is feasible, and that's really exciting. And how would you say they handle on that kind of gravel terrain?
They're great.
Yeah,
they're fabulous. Oh yeah.
Now, what's the cost? What's the cost per pair?
For a pair, if you were looking at what Phil is selling SRBs and Skikes, which are the 2 major brands. And I think that if you were going to his site, I think they're around roughly $1,000 for a pair.
Okay.
And then you get your poles. So I was getting all my poles and other gear at virtually cost because I was an owner of hardwood ski and bikes. So I was getting my poles and helmets and everything I wanted to get, I could get it there. Mm-hmm. Not everybody else had that privilege, but you get to, and I'm trying to get Phil Shaw actually to start selling some of because I wear hip padded, like I wear a pair of shorts that have got hip pads on them.
Okay.
They're made by G form, because if you do fall and you fall in asphalt, you want to protect your joints. So I've got elbow pads, I've got knee pads, I've got hip pads, because after 14,000 kilometers, you can imagine I've fallen a couple of times,
Oh boy, yeah.
And a good helmet. And, I wear gloves too, because after a while the poles start to develop friction points in your hands. So I wear gloves too. But other than that, they're smooth. They ride really well. The braking is incredibly good. But right now, Cynthia and we've got maybe, I'd say 12 different routes that we go to. So on a really windy day, if we don't want to face a lot of wind, there's a path out here that'd be about a round trip of about 20K that is fairly well protected with tall trees. So we take that. If it was 95 degrees outside or 30 degrees Celsius, there is a path that goes along one of the lakes up here. So there's always a breeze coming off that. So we go there. If I want to do a really challenging hill course and to kind of build that technique for me, do a lot more climbing, I go to Burry's Green, and that's another one that's really challenging. If I want to just go out and glide and just coast and have a nice spin, I've got probably 3 different locations where the hills are modest, and I can just glide and coast and have a good time.
Yeah.
And Cynthia keeps me company. And I'm always listening to podcasts. I'm constantly listening to podcasts.
There you go. You know, you mentioned Burry's Green, and that's a road I'm quite familiar with. I've done several mountain bike or road bike rides across there on my mountain bike, and runs across there too when I'm feeling like getting some hill training. And that's a fun.
That's a good hill.
On.
Well, imagine skating up those hills on skates like that.
Oh my goodness, yeah, especially in the hot weather, that would be pretty taxing.
Oh yeah, no, it is. Yeah, some of the. I can do the whole hills. That's not a problem anymore, but I certainly am feeling it at the top.
Oh yeah, for sure. I wanted to ask you, Gene, real quick. I don't think you addressed it, but I want to ask, so you had mentioned, you know, the temperature for you to get out has to be 2 degrees or above. Is that because it's just a comfort issue for you, or is it because it affects the way the skis perform?
You don't have winter tires on mountain bikes. So with winter tires on cars, of course, you get a softer rubber in the wintertime.
Yeah.
The rubber hardens up when it starts getting cold. And so the grip is not always wonderful. And I'd rather be a couple of degrees above freezing because I don't want to run into an ice patch.
Gotcha.
So I do it really more to stay away from, you know, a slippery surface that might cause me to wipe out. That's why we do it.
Okay. Makes sense. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think
I just got to say there's snow everywhere around us even now, but as long as the roads, there's a neighborhood down here just outside of Bob Cajun, in fact. And it's called something 32. Anyhow, but
Port 32.
Port 32, that's the one. Yeah. So we go into Port 32 and the roads are all clear, and this time of the year I can go in there for a month and do all my early training and get started. And then when the roads are all clear, then I go down County Road 24. We start going down there, or we go over to there's just a lot of places we start to pick out, you know.
Nice. Do you find early on in the season, I guess my first question is, do you do anything in your off season after kind of December 1st to kind of stay in shape, or do you just kind of take it easy and then come springtime you get back into it slowly?
Yeah, I do a few things. I was playing hockey twice a week.
Okay.
But I've given that up this past year. So I've now got osteoarthritis in my left knee, and I'd rather not aggravate it. So I decided to give up hockey. But I also have a good cycling bike downstairs, so I'll cycle. You know, like I like watching golf, for example. So I'll watch golf and sit on my bike and cycle, you know, or listen to a podcast and I'll cycle. Other than that, you know, a lot of it's just walking our dogs. Yeah. You know, lifting out the odd weights here and there, you know, just a little bit. But you know, I do get out of shape, but I'm now such a proficient skier that getting back into skiing is like falling off a log for me now.
Yeah.
It's pretty easy.
Yeah, interesting. Alex, I think you had something you want to talk about, Alex, but just real quick, I want to let you know, Gene has a background in sports physiology as well. He went to University of Waterloo and has background in kinesiology and stuff, and that's very similar to what you're doing. So I was telling him about, you know, our kind of interest in physiology and everything like that, and how we can incorporate it into our training and everything. So very similar backgrounds. But go ahead, Alex. I thought you had something to say. You look like you're going to mention something.
Yeah. So what's cool when we think about the cost of the skates being $1,000, when you factor in a pair of roller skis with bindings, with ski boots, you're again going to be at least $1,000. And for beginners who maybe want more safety and not as fast of a ski, these skates might make more sense. They can just use their running shoes a bit. So, you know, bindings maybe $100, roller skis 300, 500, pair of boots 400 to 700. So we sell them at Hardwood Ski and Bike, the roller skis. And 3 years ago I was trying to get them to sell the SRB brand so I bought 3 pairs of SRB Nordic cross skates from Germany. And we put them up. But I don't know if you knew much about Hardwood, but we had our main building burned down 3 years ago.
Oh no.
Yeah. So, and I've been on the board. I'm on the board for the last 4 or 5 years now. And so we had to recover from that. So we had to go through the insurance, and we had to get a new architect building design come through. So we now have a beautiful lodge that we didn't have, 4 years ago. And we've been prioritizing on getting through this COVID pandemic and also through the fire situation. So I'm going to reintroduce the idea of trying to sell Nordic cross skates through Hardwood. And not just the skates, but all the supportive gear as well, because everything we sell for mountain bikes, a lot of the stuff there is very suitable for protecting you if you're a Nordic cross skater. So that's something I'm hoping will happen, but it'll be a little while now. I think the COVID thing is still distracting everybody.
Yeah, absolutely. Things are up in the air in terms of having live events and stuff like that. But I've never been to Hardwood, and that's a shame. But are the trails there suitable for doing Nordic cross skating there?
No, that's why they were reluctant to do it, because they wanted to sell gear that people could use on the trails.
Yeah.
But those trails are really more mountain bike trails. So I wouldn't try to do it. I mean, probably a really good, high-end competitive cross-country skier could probably be fine with it, but I wouldn't find it fun. I'd much rather be on a backcountry road with asphalt and or a rail trail. Like we have about, I'd say not even a kilometer from where I am is access to a rail trail system throughout Ontario. And so I can Nordic skate right into Fenland Falls and come back again on the same trail that's going along the lake, Yeah. So again, on a hot day, that's a good run for us.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Alex, you had a training session today. Just want to ask real quick, how did that go? That's why you're a little bit late joining. It was good.
Yeah, we did a 7.5K skate time trial. And as you know, there's been quite a few freeze thaw cycles lately. So we were on fast snow today.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah.
Have you ever watched the, in Norway, there is a roller ski race that goes up the side of a fjord. I'm trying to remember the name of it, called Blink races.
Yeah.
You ever watch them?
Yeah.
That inspires me. I used to go to bed at night and I used to watch Blink races as I was going to sleep. And I watched the men and the women. But the name of the town, it's right on the ocean, and there's a fjord, and they go up the fjord at 20 degrees for the whole distance of 7.5 kilometers. And they do it in like a half an hour. Like, it's crazy.
Yeah.
To see what these guys do. It's unbelievable. So that's my inspiration. That used to be my inspiration all the time, watching these people.
That's impressive. Yeah.
Yeah. You got to watch it. You got to check it out, man.
Yeah. No, I love watching those Scandinavian roller ski races. It's pretty incredible, the fitness that the top athletes in the sport have. And they're so economical with their movements. Like, they know what they're doing.
Oh, yeah. And even in the wintertime when they're racing too, there's some really incredible racer skiers,
Right.
Unbelievable, those guys.
Yeah. Hey, Gene, you'd probably like, Alex has a YouTube channel, and every once in a while he puts up a video of different types of like ski techniques and things like that to try to maximize your movement and efficiency. And they're pretty good. I mean, I'm not a skier, but I watch them, and I like, what you're talking about, obviously. And I definitely have some interest in trying to get into the sport, because I love exploring new things and trying new things. And like I was saying, Gene, earlier, like guys like you start off with running and now you've transitioned. It just goes to show you that you can live that active lifestyle beyond retirement and keep on going and stuff. And Alex, promising for us is Gene's still been improving with his overall times and everything. I can't remember the times you had mentioned, Gene, but why don't you remind us now, because it's remarkable.
Yeah, last year, Alex, I found myself in the middle of the summer. My average time for a kilometer on a 25-kilometer run, it got under 4 minutes for the first time on a consistent basis. And for an old guy, I was pretty proud of that, because I used to be, when I first started, it would be 5 to 5.5 minutes. I was pretty slow and inefficient, but every season I would be getting better and better and better. And last year, at the age of, I was 69 last summer. So at that point, I was still getting better, and I just couldn't believe it. That the aerobic training, the conditioning I'd been doing, all those kilometers were still paying off at my age.
Wow.
Yep. And the other thing is about Nordic cross skating is, I found with running, I mean, I did, like I said, I was in 18 marathons and maybe another 20 or 25 road races. Don't know how many cross country ski races when I was all in my 20s, in the early 30s. And I think over the years that paid a toll because of the pounding, because the running shoes you have today are so much better. Back then, the stuff that we had was a joke. You wouldn't believe what we were running in. It would have been better in bare feet, I think. But I think now I'm older. I've got osteoarthritis in both of my hips and in my left knee, and everyone gets it. I mean, the thing is that it's at a point now where I look back and I say, if I had maybe worn better shoes or maybe stretched more before I went out for a run, or did a number of things that might have prepared my joints to perform better with less friction and less stress. If I had done all of that early in my earlier age, without trying to be the kamikaze young man that I used to be, if I had done that, I wonder if I would be dealing with the osteoarthritis today.
Yeah,
for sure.
So anybody who's listening to us who's a little bit younger, take those words of wisdom to heart and listen, because I'm sure, Gene, if you could go back to yourself.
I have the gray hair, guys.
Yeah, exactly. Well, you know, with years comes wisdom, man. So I definitely appreciate that advice too. So
yeah,
that's good stuff.
Did you get in?
Go ahead.
Yeah.
Did you get into any research in your university studies?
Well, yeah. I mean, when I did it was an honors Bachelor of Science, right?
Okay.
And in our last year in the course, we had to do a research project. So I did my own research project. It was basically studying the biomechanical forces in the hip and the knee and the ankle for running. So I had a treadmill, and I had very, very unsophisticated technology compared to today. And then I would capture the data, and I'd feed it through a computer on computer cards, guys. Because that was no kidding. They used to have a Honeywell mainframe, and we used to use a card reader to enter our data. That's how far back it goes. But yeah, we did that. Then we get a printout, and then we'd use my studies in statistics and apply the data analysis, and then wrote a report. But we'd taken a full course first on the scientific method and how to conduct a proper experiment, which has been one of the best things I've ever learned, because I can read a scientific paper in probably any field. I can determine whether it's well done or not, whether they've got the right controls in place, etc. Also, when I was a teaching assistant, and I used to teach, some of the professors would let me teach some of the labs and also some of the lectures. But back in those days, I just lost my train of thought. Anyhow, it may come back.
So yeah, we were just talking about. I guess Alex was asking if you had done any research and stuff like that. So
yeah, that's what I was going to say. I was a guinea pig for a number of their research studies. Remember one in particular where they wanted to take a muscle biopsy. So they had to cut a hole in your leg, in your thigh.
Oh my goodness.
And then they'd take a big needle and they dig it into your thigh, and they'd grind out a piece of muscle tissue, and then they'd sew it back up again, or at least link it back up again. So I did that a few times. And the idea of that was to try to study some of the enzymes and the enzyme activity. Because I remember there was one aerobic training session where we had three groups. One was an LSD group, one was a fartlek group, and the other one was an interval training group with 30 seconds on, 30 seconds off at a certain pace. And at the end of that, they wanted to see which group had the best aerobic performance. And they also looked at enzymes related to fast twitch and slow twitch muscle fibers. So they wanted to see if there was what kind of enzymatic changes there were. So they were measuring certain enzymes. And they could also determine what proportion of slow twitch and fast twitch muscle fiber you had, which was always of interest to me, because obviously if you have a lot of slow twitch muscle fiber, you're better suited to long distance running. You've got an advantage altogether. Whereas I was a very good hockey player in my day as well, and I was more fast twitch. So for me to even run a 3-hour marathon, it was something I didn't expect I'd be able to do, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Do you attribute that to a lot of the LSD running that you did to kind of improve your base to get your faster marathon times?
Yeah, I mean, the mitochondria, there's mitochondria in slow and fast twitch fibers. So that's the energy center. And so the enzyme, you can affect the enzymes on both. But if you're doing LSD training, the LSD training is still dealing with the Krebs cycle enzymes. And it didn't matter whether those enzymes are in a fast twitch muscle fiber or slow twitch, although there would be a preponderance of better Krebs cycle enzymatic activity in the red fast twitch, or sorry, slow twitch muscle fiber. But, I think that in the end, every fiber that you use for running or for any activity gets some aerobic benefit. Just some fibers get more than the others. That's all it comes down to. And
there may be some trainability of those fibers, able to convert them, what used to be a type 1 into more of a type 2 or vice versa, just through the training that you do. And it's interesting.
I've read about that, yeah.
Yeah, cross-country skiing, I'd argue there's a little bit more type 2 importance when you look at the terrain. We're trying to really work hard and aggressive for 30 to 90 second uphill bouts, and then you try to rest. So you definitely need that glycolytic capacity, not just totally oxidative.
No, I agree. Totally agree.
Yeah,
I think that might be Yeah, that might be one of the reasons why I did okay in cross-country ski racing when I was doing it, because I think I had a good balance of those types of muscle fiber, and that is the kind of sport that would benefit from a balance, you know.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely. It's interesting. I have my work partner. He's a competitive cyclist in Masters division now and everything, and he's always talking about, this guy's a sprinter, this guy's a climber, things like that, right? So everybody has kind of their specialties, right? And then you have like the well-rounded guys that are kind of jack of all trades. And yeah, it's interesting. It's, I guess, the beautiful thing about the body is, the way you treat it, it will adapt to whatever you do, right? Like I used to be big into bodybuilding and weightlifting, and then I've gotten into running now, and I've seen my body change, right? And it's just kind of, you mold it to what you're doing, and it will respond over time. So it's a really remarkable thing for sure.
Well, when I was on the varsity rugby team, of course, I was much more muscle bound, so I bulked up, went to the gym, lifted weights, that kind of stuff. So I was a different body frame for sure. And then, I was maybe 175, 180 pounds. And my lowest marathon running weight, I was about 156. And that would have been maybe 5 years later,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So I really stripped it down.
And even for my skiing, it's a fine line for how much mass you want for the power application. A little different than running. It's all about that light, lean build. So right now I weigh in about 170. Whereas if I was to be the best runner, I could be probably 155 would be better.
That's right. Yeah.
I have a lot more mass in the quads than you'd want for running.
Yeah.
How tall are you?
About 6 feet.
Yeah. That's pretty slender for 6 feet. That's good.
Yeah.
Yeah. I remember the first time I went out for a run with Alex, we met in a parking lot, and I hadn't met him in person yet. And I could pick him out from a mile away because I could see the size of his quads. Yeah, like, holy smokes, that's got to be him. Massive quads.
Yeah. We used to call them thunder thighs.
Thunder thighs, yeah. I use the term quadzilla.
That works.
Yeah. No, it's interesting. Yeah. I mean, even with my running now, like I'm about 5'10", just under 5'11", and I'm 168 now. And I've been down to 155, but I felt a little bit too light at that. But 168 for me is I'm pretty happy there, I think. Right. So my body goes against me when it comes to like the distance running, because, I've got bigger, stronger legs, more suitable for sprinting and stuff like that. And that's kind of, when I was growing up, it was soccer, and, I did like 100 meter, 200 meters on the track and stuff. It was into my early 30s where I started doing the running and stuff. And, things have changed, but, I still prefer running uphill. That's been one of my strengths. I think it's just because of the way my body type is, right? So
yeah. So you weren't born with skinny legs like a Koji or something, one of those guys.
No, not at all.
those guys have no leg weight whatsoever. Those legs are so incredibly skinny. No wonder they run so fast.
Yeah, and they're just so efficient. And speaking of efficiency, Gene, I wanted to ask you, how you mentioned you've kind of been improving with your times over the years. Have you done specific work with your technique, with your cross skating, or is this just something that's come naturally for you, or have you done like specific training to kind of make your body move differently, more efficiently?
Yeah, I'm a real student of kinesiology, in the sense that I like to look for efficiency. So in the early days when I first started getting into it, I would go to the YouTube videos, and I'd see some examples of people practicing proper technique. And I would go out every time, and I would be looking at maybe taking one thing that I want to improve on, and I'd spend some time on it when I was out training. So I was always looking for efficiency. So I still am today, for that matter. As I said, I've got some osteoarthritis in my knee, so now I'm trying to adjust my skating so that I'm up over my wheels on my ski in a way that gives me better center of gravity over the ski while I'm gliding. It seems to be better. It makes it work better for me, So I think I'll always be like that. I think I'll always be the guy that's listening to his body, trying to sense, how my balance is. Everything is about balance, as you know.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't get up over the ski or over the wheel properly with a proper balance, you're not going to glide as freely, and it's as simple as that. So one of the things, I think one of the reasons why I'm getting efficient is because I never worry about falling. I mean, I've wiped out once or twice when I've maybe let a tire touch a tip of one of my poles and trip over them. I've done that once or twice, but generally speaking, I'm so efficient on my and so balanced on my Nordic skates. The other thing is my youngest daughter was a professional ballet dancer. So she danced for the Alberta Ballet, and she also danced for a ballet in China. So ballet is all about balance. And so I used to look at what she was doing and studied what she was doing, because that was a big part of, trying to translate, her methods to what I was trying to do and for balance as well. I take a real interest in that. But like a student of that kind of stuff mentally, I can't help myself. It's just the way I look at things,
Yeah. It's so much fun to be able to take that knowledge and science, everything, is kind of apply it to what you're doing. And it really is fun. There's a lot of joy there. And it just goes to show you, it's, you can always be learning. There's always a way to learn and stuff to learn and improve, right? Yeah, we're never done. We're never done, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My friend Bill Gardner, I mentioned him earlier. He's my boss at the Fitness Institute, and he was the 1964 Olympics in Japan for Canada. So that's the guy I'm talking about.
Yes.
He's the one that got me into cross-country skiing. So because I was in the gym one day, he walks in and he says, "You're running marathons. I want to get you on skis too. So go out and buy this stuff on the weekend." So I went out and bought skis, and I went to a golf course. And then the next weekend I was at a race site. So, it was pretty crazy, but that's how we did it. But Bill was a hell of a great athlete, incredible athlete. And Bill now is 80 years of age today. Wow. He lives north of Toronto, up in Maple. He's got a 25-acre farm. At the age of 80, or last year, 79, he's got his own track setter on his farm. He cuts his own trails. Last year, he did 700 kilometers of skiing on his own property trails.
You're kidding it. Wow. Remarkable. At
the age of 79. I mean, Bill is phenomenal. Bill is also a very famous author. So he's written 12 books, and he had a #1 bestseller for many years, and it was called The Trouble with Canada. So he's got a PhD in philosophy and English. So he's a very intellectual guy, a very bright guy. And so his writing is quite interesting too. So he's one of these man of all seasons type, where he's an incredible long distance cyclist too, as well as a cross country skier. He's done everything. This guy's had one full life, I'll tell you.
Wow. You certainly keep some interesting company, Gene. That's absolutely.
I do.
I bet you've got tons of stories for us.
Well, I like people who like ideas, and I also like people who don't want to. There's a lot of people who want to be spectators of life. So they want to watch other people do things like theater and that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. I can't be a spectator. I don't even watch hockey, for example. I like hockey, but I don't watch it. I'd rather be out doing things, being active myself. To me, that's where the joy in life comes. It's not just sitting and watching other people do things all the time,
Yeah, I couldn't agree more with you. I think that's one of the keys to happiness. Like you said, it's you can sit there and watch and you can be the armchair quarterback, if you will. Say, I could do this, I could do that, but you're not really, you're missing out if you're not trying it yourself. And it doesn't matter. I always tell people, it doesn't matter where, like a lot of people will make excuses. Well, I could never do that because I'm not in shape or I'm not this, but we all have to start where we are. And you're not competing against anybody except yourself. So go out and experience stuff, right? Like this whole Nordic cross skating or even roller skiing is something I'd love to try in the future. It sounds really exciting for me. And, like running is my primary thing and I love it, but I'm always open to trying new things for sure.
Well, it'd be good cross training for you.
Oh yeah,
less impact, right?
Yeah, it's very good. If you want to come over, I'll invite you over if you want to give me a call later. And once the weather's a little better, I've got 5 pairs here. I'll put you on a pair.
Sounds like something we can do. Maybe I'll bring Alex along with me.
That'd be sweet. That'd be good.
Sure.
Yeah. Next time I'm up visiting my in-laws, Steve and Anna, I'll give you a ring for sure.
Yeah. We can meet at Bob Cajun, and I'll get you on County Road 24. Yeah. And I'll get you on one of the big wheels. I think I've still got 2 of the 6-inch wheels, but I've got 2 of the. So I've only got 4 pair now. I sold a pair last year, so I've got 2 pairs that are big wheels, and I've got 2 pairs that are small wheels.
Well, we'll do it for sure. I'm excited about that one. We'll do another podcast about it too. We can talk about my falls. So, Gene, let me just ask you a few more questions before we wrap this up here. I like to do a bit of a rapid fire with my guests here, and you're kind of a cross sport guy. So this will apply to both sports, I guess. Just a few quick questions here, but in terms of running, your favorite terrain to run on? Do you like road, trail, or track for running?
I'm a road runner. Yeah. Road
runner. Okay. And what about for the Nordic cross skating?
God, I like it all. Probably backcountry road where there's cows I can see going by, like farms, where I can see water, and where the trees might be blowing, because I love watching dancing trees. So the wind's up in the, I'm looking at trees now because I'm in the middle of a forest. Eh? So if there's a wind blowing and I can see the trees dancing at the top from the wind, that inspires me. I just love it, you know. Yeah, I'd say that would be the best. That would be it for me.
It's all about the scenery, eh?
Well, it's not that. It's just that there's just, you know, the whole tactile sensation of feeling the wind on your body, of looking up and seeing the trees going with you, you know, of listening to a great podcast, of feeling your body. You get into the rhythm that really is comfortable, and you're just floating, you know, and as you're just floating along, and you know, it's almost effortless, you know. I love that.
Great answer. Great answer.
And I love going up the hills too. I love seeing the hills, and say I'm going to take, and I really practice a lot my technique on the hills, because that's where the efficiency comes from. I'm getting so good on the hills now.
Wonderful. And let me ask you too, on your long skates, do you bring any nutrition or hydration with you, and how do you carry that?
Just water. If it's a long run, like if I just do 10K, I don't take anything.
Okay.
But if I do anything above 20, you know, say above 15 to 20K, especially on a warm day, I'll have water with me. I do have drink. It's a powder. It's a protein powder that has amino acids in it. I put that into the water. I don't like taking power drinks. I don't like sugar in my drinks, so I take that instead. It's very tasty, very inexpensive. It doesn't take much, and I have a pack around my waist, a fairly lightweight one there. I carry that bottle, but that's it. I don't take any food. I don't need it. You know.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very
if I'm
good.
burning fats, you know, if you're out aerobically, you're burning fats. I got enough fat around my for the rest of my body. I don't have to worry about that.
There you go. There you go. And lastly, do you have any post long run indulgences that you like to eat when you get back, or drink?
Just a beer.
Just a beer. And that's number one common answer
Cold
for that
beer.
question. Yeah. What kind of beer do you like? Cold. It doesn't matter.
Yeah. No, I like an India Pale Ale.
Yeah, all those are great. Yeah,
That's good. Yeah, in the summertime, that's my favorite. In the wintertime, I'm more of a stout drinker. Like I like, you know, Guinness and those kinds of. But I like experimenting with different stouts and or stout drinks. So
yeah. Wonderful. I don't know if you can hear my piper in the background. She's protesting. I think she wants to go out.
I also am a coffee snob.
Oh, are you?
So I have an Italian coffee machine, and we roast our own coffee. So we buy raw beans, we roast the beans, we grind our own beans. Our beans are freshly roasted within 48 hours when we make our coffee.
Oh,
and so the coffee is better than you'll find virtually anywhere.
Wow. I thought I upped my coffee game when my wife bought a French press and we went back to buying whole beans and grinding them at home. But you're buying fresh beans and then roasting them. So
we're doing all of that.
You are the master.
It's very cheap. For $150, Cynthia bought a machine. And this thing is, you put your computer connected to it, and it sets a sequence for roasting your beans. You find the sequence you like, and we only roast enough for 2 days. Every night you put it on, and when it's roasting at night, the smell of cooking coffee beans goes right through the house, and it's fabulous.
Oh man, that just sounds wonderful.
Yeah, so it's only $150 for that, and he's got the website on this card is www.rollerski.ca.
Okay.
And he called it roller ski, even though he was a skike seller, because I don't think people knew what skikes were. So I think he wanted to reach out to the roller ski market, because he wanted to convince. And that's one thing I was going to say earlier, by the way, is that if I was a high-end competitive racer, cross-country ski racer, and I wanted to really work on technique as well as everything else, then I would probably favor roller skis on a fast track for training purposes. If I'm a weekend warrior athlete like me, a guy who's just wants to stay in shape, he's never going to be, on the podium, you know, and wants to have the flexibility and the training and the aerobic conditioning, all the things you would get out of cross-country skiing, I would go for the Nordic cross cage, which to me is probably 98% of all cross-country skiers is the weekend warrior type. There's only a few people out there, like the Alexes of the world, that would, you know, if he's on a racing team and he's got a coach, do you know, Alex, do you know who Jack Sassville is?
Yeah, I know Jack. He's coaching my FISU World Student Games team next year in Switzerland. So he's the head coach of that team. And, you know, he's coached Olympic teams too. So
yeah, well, he's my business partner, right? So,
okay.
So he and I are on the board of directors at Hardwood Ski and Bike. That he was our president for the first 8 years at Hardwood. So I know him quite well. He's given me some lessons as well. So
nice.
So yeah.
Small world.
Oh yeah. 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 He's quite good. He knows his stuff.
Yeah. He's been in the coaching game for 60 years now, would you say? Quite a while, 50 years. Yeah.
He's 2 months younger than me. And so
Okay.
he'll turn 70 in October.
Okay.
Yeah.
And he was national team coach for quite a few years there.
That's right. Yeah, he was. Yeah, what he doesn't know about cross-country skiing is not worth knowing, you know. And in fact, he was the one who turned me on to Phil Maffetone in the big book of endurance training, Phil Maffetone's book. You probably know Phil, I would imagine, do you?
Oh yeah, we've talked about Phil on the show in the past.
Yeah.
The Maffetone method. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So Gene, we're gonna wrap things up here, and I'm just gonna leave you with my customary phrase here at Trail Tales ARP. I'm gonna modify it for you, and that would be to ski wild, my friend.
I will.